He didn't commit suicide.
Do you suspect foul play?
This is a heinous crime.
I've wanted to do a whodunit for a long, long time.
This has Agatha Christie DNA to it.
You were counting on that inheritance, weren't you?
If I could pause.
It was just electric. You had to be on your toes.
De danske biografer er klar med en tidlig julegave i form af Rian Johnsons Knives Out. Det er en af årets mest underholdende film og en skøn krimi på linje med Agatha Christies klassiske mordmysterier. I filmen dør en rig gammel forfatter under mystiske omstændigheder. Flere af hans familiemedlemmer og venner er under mistanke, og de spilles alle sammen af vildt veloplagte skuespillere.
I would like to request that you all stay until the investigation is completed.
What? Can we ask why? Has something changed?
No.
No, it hasn't changed, or no, we can't ask.
I'm gonna live.
Var det mord? Ja, det er spørgsmålet, og vi kunne naturligvis ikke drømme om at give svaret her. Så bare rolig, vi diskuterer ingen af filmens fornøjelige twists i vores interviews med filmens instruktør, Rian Johnson, og skuespilleren Don Johnson. Vi kan dog godt afsløre, at de to mænd ikke er i familie med hinanden. Don Johnson har tidligere efterforsket utallige mord i den klassiske tv-serie Miami Vice fra 1980'erne. En serie, der i den grad satte sit præg på datidens mode og tv-landskab.
The circus must be in town.
Eversole, just because you work homicide doesn't mean you have to dress like a corpse. Look at this guy.
Senere spillede Johnson detektiven Nash Bridges på tv, og hans karriere har fået lidt af en renæssance for nylig, takket være roller i blandt andet Quentin Tarantinos Django Unchained.
Well, come on inside and get yourself something cool to drink.
Og HBO-serien Watchmen.
You gonna give me the speech now?
What speech?
I should calm down and take a breath before we're at war again.
No. There's a guy in my trunk.
Delightful.
Og både i Knives Out og vores interview er Johnson også yderst veloplagt.
But Don, it's such a pleasure to meet you here and talk to you about Knives Out, which is a movie that I really, really enjoyed.
Oh, thanks.
And I especially enjoyed it because it's such an amazing cast. I mean, with yourself included. Not saying that actors don't ordinarily bring their A game, but when you're on a set like that, surrounded by so many great actors, can you actually feel like in the room that the performances are rising?
Yes, but I think that with this cast in particular, I think we all have been in the business long enough so that a lot of the egos and all that stuff just didn't come into play. First of all, I left mine down the road quite a ways back anyway. But it was really, I think we were all just so joyful to be there and working on this material that when we got in the room, it was just electric. And and somebody, you had to be on your toes because there were the lines that were written and then there were the lines that were unwritten.
Yeah.
And if somebody hit you, in tennis parlance, if somebody hit you a ball with a lot of topspin on it, you hit them a slice back, and that's joyful for actors.
Yeah, to play with look like the best athletes in the business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, but I mean, you played some very noteworthy cops and officers and investigators throughout the years. A lot of them that I've admired quite a bit. So is it somewhat weird or interesting to go from playing the investigator to playing the investigated? Is that interesting?
No, it's just a different. It's just a different. It's all acting, so it's just a different spin on it.
Yeah.
It's fun. If you are fortunate enough to have a script that's written this well, it makes what you do so much easier and so much more fun, and I think that translates on the film.
Do you personally have an affinity for whodunits like this?
Not over any other genre, but I love the genre. Of course, I always love all the Agatha Christie stuff, but this has a little Agatha Christie Hitchcockian sort of DNA to it. Because it starts as a whodunit, then it sort of morphs into a mystery, and then suspense, and then a thriller, and then by the end, it's back to being a full-on, pure, in-your-face whodunit.
I'm sort of running out of time here, but I gotta ask you, growing up watching Miami Vice and loving it so much, and with the 80s revivals really taking off at the moment, would you ever be interested in removing your socks and stepping back into the shoots of Crockett?
There's chatter.
Okay.
We'll see how it goes.
Cool.
Who is that guy?
Mr. Blanc is a private investigator of great renown.
I read a tweet about a New Yorker article about you. You're famous.
My father committed suicide. Why are you here?
I suspect foul play.
Rian Johnson har både skrevet og instrueret Knives Out. Han er nok bedst kendt som manden bag Star Wars The Last Jedi, som fik en noget blandet modtagelse blandt fans, men som blev rost af de fleste kritikere og klarede sig strålende ved billetlurerne. Men inden da lavede Johnson faktisk en af årtusindets bedste thrillers, Brick fra 2005, med Joseph Gordon-Levitt, der spiller en ung mand, som efterforsker sin ekskærestes forsvinden.
I'm looking for Emily.
You left her.
Yeah, I did.
You better be sure you want to know what you want to know.
Med Knives Out er Johnson altså tilbage i en genre, som han ikke blot har en forkærlighed for, men også er skidegod til at arbejde indenfor.
I only discovered yesterday that actually your grandfather was Swedish. Really? Do you know any? Could you speak any Swedish at all?
No, I can do a bad Swedish accent. I can do the Swedish chef, and that would be hilarious.
So it'd be like Swedish-ish.
Swedish-ish, Swedish-ish. Yeah.
Cool. But Ryan, it's a pleasure to meet you, especially because you happen to have made one of my favorite films of the last 20 years, which is Brick, which is a movie that I've always loved.
Thank you.
And of course, that movie is very much different to Knives Out, but both of them I feel are very assured crime films.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help but wonder if it was a very deliberate choice for you to make this movie after going to the infinite reaches of space, going back to a genre that you're very comfortable in and that you really know, and also that predominantly takes place in this one beautiful house, this setting with all these characters. Was that a deliberate choice on your part?
Well, I mean, not so much in terms of like in relation to Star Wars, but it was I've wanted to do a whodunit for a long time, and it's always been a genre that I've loved. I grew up reading Agatha Christie's books. I grew up loving the movies that were made out of her books, and I don't know, there's just something so much fun about, I mean, it's very different, you're right, than like film noir. It's a very different subgenre of the detective kind of genre, but it's just something I dearly love. I wanted to do it for a long time.
Oh, let me guess.
Hey, stop.
Hugh Drysdale? Call me Ransom, it's my middle name. Only the help calls me Hugh.
Okay. This is Trooper Wagner. I'm Lieutenant Elliot. Just want to ask a few questions.
With all these dangling plot threads and all these characters and all this stuff coming beautifully together, do you ever, as a writer on a project like this, do you worry that, oh my God, have I left a smoking gun somewhere? Is there a twist that I haven't probably, you know, do you panic about that sort of stuff?
I worry to this day that at a Q&A, the next question is going to be something that unravels the whole thing. Yeah, on set, every time an actor would come up to me and I could see they had a question, I would hold my breath and I would think this is going to be the one where they point out the thing that makes no sense and makes the whole story fall apart. But no, you just you do your homework and you just kind of try and make it all make sense, and you try and I mean, I'm sure there are, I don't know, I'm sure if you diagram it out, there are a few things that maybe don't line up, but mostly I think it's there. Mostly I think it works.
Yeah, I didn't feel they were there.
Okay, good. That's all that matters. Yeah. There's a classic story about, I think when they were making The Big Sleep, it? They had to call Raymond Chandler and ask him like, who is it who kills the chauffeur in this? And he didn't know. So I think as long as the story pulls you through, that's kind of what it's all about, I think, yeah.
But I'd love to hear about like the working process again on writing this. Do you start with contemplating the details of the crime itself and then work your way backwards? Like, do you think of the end and then work out how the threads will build up to that?
Well, I start thinking like I'm very structural when I write. So I work in little notebooks like the ones you have right there, and I start very big picture. And so for me, it's not even like the crime or who did it. For me, it's kind of the narrative shape of the whole thing. So it's kind of like, okay, it starts here and there's like a sequence where they're like questioning everyone and then this happens and this next sequence is it. And then I kind of get the big pieces and then I zoom in bit by bit and attack in finer grain until I get to all the details of it. Cool. And the details are always them. But making sure it feels simple enough that the audience can understand it. Especially, it's easy to get complicated. The work goes into making something that's very complex feel very simple on the screen, so you feel like you're caught up with it, and maybe you feel like you're even ahead of it until you realize you're not. That's kind of the sleight of hand of it all, I guess. Yeah,
I definitely followed it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I mean, it's an amazing cast as well, and I particularly loved, like, while watching it, that you've taken James Bond, Captain America, and Detective Crockett, like very clear-cut heroes, and throw them into a movie that's just riddled with shades of gray and shadows. Was that a deliberate choice to take like those kind of guys and cast them sort of against type in this film?
Well, I mean, as much as this was inspired by Agatha Christie's books, it was also inspired by the movies based on her books I was watching growing up, and that was, for me, the ones where Peter Ustinov plays Poirot were like the big inspirations. And one thing about those movies, they had all-star casts. They were just like, we're going to do a big all-star cast. Everyone who shows up on screen, you're going to say, ooh, it's that person. You have that reaction, everyone. And that was very much the idea here. And I love, I don't know, I mean, I love actors. You have to love actors if you're a director. Like, I don't know why you would do it if you didn't take joy in just act. And so to get actors that I've always wanted to work with and to give them something to do that maybe I haven't quite seen them do before, that to me is always the most fun. Because then I know that we're going to be discovering something together, and I'm going to be seeing them kind of reach to someplace different, and yeah, that's what was fun about this.
I'm sort of running out of time here. I know this is probably a question you'll get from every single journalist, but I'd love to hear, like, the mooted Star Wars trilogy that you're doing. Is that still on the drawing board, and what can you give us an update on?
Yeah, I have no update for it. I'm still talking to Lucasfilm about it, and they're figuring out what they're doing and their schedule and everything.
Cool. Well, Ryan, thank you so much.
Thank you so
much.
It's
been a pleasure.
Man. Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
You.
Yeah.
I keep waiting for the big reveal.
Oh my God.
I think you have something you want to tell me.